So, welcome to our memorial service here on the shores of Moose Lake. One of the traditions that we have, that we started many years ago, is that we, the alumni, come together with you, the future alumni, the generations of the future, to share and honor those individuals of our family who have gone before us on their last portage. One of the things about becoming a member of the Northern Tier staff, and I don't want you to ever forget this, is that you become a member of a larger family. A family that knows no political boundaries, knows no geographic boundaries. Time is irrelevant, whether you are here in the 40s or the 60s, the 80s, 2010, teens, whatever. It doesn't matter. You are now part of a family unlike that you've been a part of before, and everywhere you go, whatever you do, you'll always be a part of this family. As we stand here on Moose Lake, the edge of the wilderness, beautiful night like this with the wind blowing in, the eagle nest across the lake on Boy Scout Island, we all share in the wonderment of the wilderness. It's a common thing that will never displace in our lifetimes. And that's why this family is so important. Because it doesn't matter where you go and what you do, you'll always be a part of this family. And no matter who you talk to, you can always share in the wonderment of being a part of the wilderness and canoe country. So this is why we honor members of our family who have passed before us, to reflect upon the fact they're no longer here, and to celebrate their lives, and at the same time, to celebrate that you're now part of our family. Years from now, the family will be bigger, more of you will be a part of it, and as we come together, we can always share in this wonderment, this opportunity to be a part of this, no matter what you do and where you go. So tonight we have quite an extensive list, a little longer than normal. And we have some individuals that, from a perspective of impact upon our family, it's a little larger than that which we may otherwise share it. And we'll go through those momentarily. But I want to leave you with one thought. And as politically incorrect as this will be, there was a young man who wrote in the beach's name, but the waves washed the beach and his name away. He then took a knife, carved his initials in a young tree. But over the years, as the tree grew, it healed itself, and the initials were erased. The young person was perplexed. He said, how can I leave a remembrance of myself so that people will know who I am and what I did? And he sought sage advice from an elder. And the elder said, it's simple. You must leave your impact upon the hearts of those that you deal with. For if you impact their heart, they will forever remember you, wherever you go and whatever you do. So as you depart this summer, and you meet new people in your crews, and you make friends among yourselves, remember that. If you want to leave a remembrance, leave it in their hearts, and they will carry it and treasure it forever. tonight we celebrate and treasure those who have passed before us. The first individual was Charlie Hann, who was 95 years old. Charlie Hann was actually a member of the Northern Tier Committee in the early 1990s and instrumental in keeping the program going during those turbulent times. His happiest moments were when he could bring his sons to canoe country, an exchange student named Eduardo, and then later in life his grandsons. He was a part of our extended family. LaFollette was a staff member in the mid-70s. Dennis lived in this area. Dennis was tragically killed in a car accident early last year. We remember his spirit as we honor those tonight. Jim McDaniel worked as a guide from 57 to 1961. He passed away on November 20th of last year. A member of our Charlie Guide family. Jim Wedge worked here in 1951, 1952, 1960, and then a couple of years in the 70s. He passed away on October 31st, as reported by his daughter, who is also a former staff member and a member of our family. David Ziegenhagen, 83, worked at the base for 7 years from 54 to 61. Passed away peacefully in Cloverdale, California this past January. The next one was an advisor who took crews out of here from 1943 to 1970. He took trips. He took over 212 trips. Portage through the Quetico, took crews out. His name is Cady. Phil passed away this past year. He counted in his blessings that he had guides of sandy bridges and worked with Cliff Hanson, who was the former director here. Don Curry, a guide at the base. He was here in the early 60s, a longtime member of the Sommers Alumni Association, passed away in Fort Worth. Next individual was Steve Haas from South Dakota, who became a doctor. His brother worked at the base, Gerald. The two of them worked here in the early 60s. He became an endocrinologist in western South Dakota for several decades, giving service to patients, and lived on a ranch. I now pass it over to Corey to talk about another of our colleague and family members.
So a lot of you guys probably do Kate or Quentin Rench, who worked here fairly recently, both of them. And their dad, Alan Rench, what a God, that's his name. If you know anything about tools, it's a little bit funny. Their dad, Alan Rench, died really suddenly this winter. And nobody expected it. He was young. He was my age. And he was my friend. And I would often get to base a little bit late from Maryland. And first thing I do is come down to the landing. And somehow Alan always knew I was here. He'd come down, he'd be here. And I had my first drink of water from the wilderness. And so I always remember Alan Rench. And I know a lot of people will. And his dad worked on the canoes here. And so did one of his boys. And that legacy still lives on. So, think of Alan when you're paddling.
Dick, if you could talk about Owen.
Yeah.
is a guy that I think many of you, certainly returning staff, will recognize. I'll put his picture up here for you. Owen worked here in the 1960s as a guide. He was from Louisiana originally, and later in life was from Texas. And Owen worked up here 3 or 4 years as a guide. He disappeared from the base for 40 years and reappeared here about a dozen years ago, maybe 14 years ago, something like that. And he was shocked at what he saw here. He was shocked at how different the place looked. Many more buildings, much more activity, larger staff. But he quickly recognized that the core of what he liked about the base back in the 60s was still here. And that's a theme that I've heard repeatedly from returning staff from years ago. They get past the original shock of how modern the place looks. The environment and the spirit is still here. Well, Owen's wife had just died, and he was a bit at sea with what to do, and his kids suggested he come back up. And he spent a little time here during training week and so forth, and he went, I think Kevin Dowling was the director, base director then, and he said to Kevin, he said, I'd like to work here again. So I got 2 conditions. One of them is I don't want to take somebody else's job, and the second condition is you don't pay me. So he proceeded for much of the 10 years to be running the canoe yard, fixing the canoes, telling the crews that their boats were guaranteed to float until they sank, and and he was a practical joker as well. He's known to attach seat clamps to the underseats of canoes of guides that he liked here, of interpreters that he liked, to have fun with them. He had a great sense of humor. He was a great confidant to a lot of the staff here. He retired a couple of times from the canoe yard, and the time that he did, he had pretty bad obstructive lung disease. In the last few years, he'd ride the gator down here to his memorial service, and then ride back up again and go on about his life. Owen was a kind of a gruff, friendly kind of guy, but the exterior hid a person of real depth. He had a great understanding of British and European history. He could talk at length if he were prompted, and all things British and, of course, Irish he was fond of. And he was fond of a good taste of whiskey as well, never interfering with his work, but he enjoyed it on the alcohol. I know that he was special to a lot of us and a lot of you who are still here. So I'd like to tip my hat to Owen in remembrance.
So as we've done in the past, tonight we'll place a wreath on the water to commemorate the souls of the individuals that we honor here. And I would ask Randy if he could come down, and Abby, if you would join him, and if you guys would place this wreath on the water. Brian, I'm sorry. Here it is. And as they place the wreath on the water, I would just ask that in your own way, you take a moment of silence to remember the departed. close out tonight's service, I'd ask that everybody rise to join us in the far north end.
You guys all know how it goes. It's the
Far north ends are calling me away. It's the call on in the north. As satisfied with the sunlight for my home. From the dynasty, please, maybe I will go. Here is painted well. If you're thinking in your inner heart, the swagger in my step. And you've never been along the border trail.
It's the flash paddle blades that
Gleaming in the sun.
softly skimming by the shore. It's the tang of fine traffic coming on the breeze that calls me to the waterways. From
The goodness of Louise, maybe I will go. You see the moon and here is plain too well. If you're thinking in your inner heart, there's a swagger in my step, and you've never been along the border trail. The border trail.